Chapter 71. 4 years. Lying in his small cabin bed, Wang Lin's cultivation level was now so advanced that he felt no need for sleep. He sat up and gazed at the moon through his window, taking out a gourd and drinking deeply from it. To break through from peak condensation to foundation building requires an enormous amount of spiritual energy. I must start preparing the dew, Wang Lin murmured to himself. Indeed, young man, when do you plan to seek out what attribute materials to complete the heaven-defying pearl? Seatunen asked. First, I'll find a place nearby to seclude myself and cultivate until I reach foundation building. After that, there will be time enough to search, Wang Lin replied after a moment's contemplation. The night passed quietly. Over the next several days, Wang Lin stayed close to his parents. After half a month at home, he bid them farewell. As his parents watched him leave with heavy hearts, his figure transformed into a rainbow streak and vanished into the horizon. As he departed, Wang Lin felt a deep melancholy, unsure when or if he would return home again. Though the Windeye cave in the cliff had been his first choice for seclusion, Wang Lin abandoned this option after careful consideration. His cultivation method differed from others, requiring a water source without one. He would reject even the most auspicious location. Moreover, its proximity to Mount Heng Peak made it too dangerous. After an extensive search of the surrounding area, Wang Lin discovered a cave at the base of a barren mountain. Inside was an underground spring, and the numerous animal droppings outside suggested frequent visits by wild beasts. After thoroughly searching the cave and confirming there were no other exits, he promptly sealed the entrance with stones using his gravitational technique. With the cave completely sealed, Wang Lin began his second period of cultivation seclusion. Time flew by swiftly in the mountains. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years passed in what seemed like the blink of an eye. Outside Wang Lin's cave, the originally haphazardly piled stones were now covered in thick vines, making the entrance nearly impossible to detect even up close. Over these 4 years, the area had become a gathering place for mountain beasts, with even some rare and magical creatures frequently lingering to breathe in the cave's essence. One day, 2 streaks of rainbow light crossed the sky as 3 people to men and a woman aligned on flying swords. The leader was a middle-aged man in black robes, his eyes sharp as lightning. He hovered in mid-air, emanating an otherworldly aura, with a green sword gleaming coldly beneath his feet. Third senior brother, you must help me find a black crystal beast with strong spiritual nature. Next month is the competition for spots to enter the back mountain, and with a black crystal beast as my sword spirit, I'm sure to succeed, said a young woman beside the middle-aged man. She was strikingly beautiful, with bright eyes and pearl-white teeth, her voice as melodious as a songbird. If Wang Lin were present, he would have found her familiar. She was the same Miss Zhu who had harbored feelings for Wang Zhuo 4 years ago. Time had transformed the once naive girl into an elegant young woman, her charm now even more captivating than before. The middle-aged man seemed lost in thought for a moment before nodding. Sister, do your best to enter the back mountain. After I help you catch the black crystal beast, I too must enter seclusion for cultivation. Beside the young woman stood a boy of 8 or 9, clinging tightly to her with a pale face. Senior brother, senior sister, you were flying too fast. I could barely keep my eyes open. Now that we're here, can we please land? Miss Zhu smiled brightly. Little junior brother, weren't you the one who insisted on coming? We told you your cultivation wasn't sufficient, but you wouldn't listen. This was barely even fast, and you are already struggling. The middle-aged man turned to look at them both, his voice stern. Junior brother, though your innate talent is exceptional, how can you hope to cultivate immortality if you can't endure even this minor hardship? The boy, clearly intimidated, quickly replied, Third senior brother, I understand my mistake. Miss Zhu playfully tapped the boy's forehead, smiling. Little junior brother, just wait a bit longer. We'll head back to the sect after catching the black crystal beast. The boy nodded eagerly. speaking softly. Senior sister, you are known as a genius in our Zhuang Sect. In just 4 years, you've advanced from the 4th layer of key condensation to the 7th. Once you get a black crystal beast as your sword spirit, you'll surely become one of the sect's elite. Then you can help me if Li Shen bullies me again. The young woman shook her head with a wry smile. If you want to talk about genius, senior brother Liu Fang is the real prodigy. He has nearly reached first senior brother's level and is about to break through to the 13th layer. And senior sister Liu Mei has reportedly reached the 12th layer. They're original disciples of Zhuang Sect, so they naturally have the right to enter the back mountain. I'm different, coming from Heng Yue Sect. I must compete for one of the limited spots. I hope I can succeed this time. The middle-aged man snorted disapprovingly. That Liu Feng? He's only progressed so quickly because he had access to the back mountain. Our founder only acquired the back mountain from Heng Yue Sect because he saw its value. Without it, how could Liu Feng advance so rapidly? Even with good talent, breaking through each layer would take years without abundant spiritual energy. Miss Zhu smiled gracefully, changing the subject. Third senior brother, look at this place. I remember it was different for years ago. How did it become a gathering place for so many spiritual beasts in such a short time? Chapter 72, The Art of Foundation Stealing. The middle-aged man looked down briefly before saying thoughtfully, "This place is rather strange. 2 years ago, it suddenly began emanating spiritual energy, attracting numerous magical beasts. Since then, traces of spiritual energy occasionally leak out, causing these creatures to linger." The boy's eyes lit up. "Senior brother, could there be some treasure here?" The middle-aged man chuckled. Some elders suspected the same and came to investigate, but they concluded it was just a regular spiritual cave beneath the ground releasing energy. Nothing extraordinary. The boy sighed disappointedly, muttering, "What a shame. It would have been nice if there really was a treasure." The middle-aged man laughed. "Well, it's getting late. Let me catch a black crystal beast with high spiritual nature, and then we'll head back." He swept his divine sense across the ground, identifying 7 or 8 black crystal beasts among the wild creatures, examining each one carefully. Suddenly, all the beasts breathing in spiritual energy seemed startled. They grew restless, with some beginning to growl. Gradually, more joined in until all the beasts were roaring, their cries directed toward a moss-covered cliff face. The middle-aged man froze, just as he was about to warn his companions to retreat. An immense divine sense swept through the area. His face changed dramatically even with his cultivation at the 12th layer of key condensation. He felt completely exposed under this divine sense, utterly powerless to resist. Beside him, Miss Zhu turned pale, her sword light flickering before falling to the ground. She cried out as she and the boy clinging to her plummeted from Mydra. The middle-aged man's own sword light wavered precariously. Using all his strength, he rushed forward to catch them both before they hit the ground. Even this simple action left him drenched in sweat. Upon landing, he immediately cupped his hands respectfully. Junior disciple Hai Li of the Zhuang Sect pays respects to the senior. Please forgive our intrusion upon your cultivation retreat. Miss Zhu, recovering from the shock of the divine sense that had left her mind reeling, quickly added, "Junior disciple Zhu Fei of the Zhuang Sect pays respect." The boy, terrified and bloodless, clung to the young woman's robes behind her, too frightened to speak. The wild beasts on the ground, swept by this divine sense, froze in terror, lying motionless with fear in their eyes. Zhuang Sect. An ancient voice echoed from all directions, its tone unreadable. The middle-aged man inwardly cursed his luck. Alone, he could have fled at the first sign of danger, but with his junior sister and brother present, abandoning them would surely bring their master's wrath. His only hope now was that their proximity to the Zhuang Sect and their innocent presence might spare them. After that single statement, the voice fell silent. The middle-aged man's heart pounded as he steeled himself, deciding that if it came to it, his own survival would take priority. Miss Zhu, sweating profusely and extremely nervous, saw her usually composed third senior brother pale with fear. After some hesitation, she spoke submissively. "Senior, we believe we haven't done anything to offend you." Before she could finish, the ancient voice suddenly exclaimed softly, pausing before asking, "Did you say your surname is Zhu?" Miss Zhu started, responding respectfully, "Yes, disciple's surname is Zhu." The voice fell silent again. Then, after a long while, sighed faintly. "You may leave." Suddenly, the sky rippled as if an invisible hand had waved, sending all free flying far away. The middle-aged man's face turned ashen. He was terrified, realizing that in that instant his entire body had been immobilized. Had the senior harbored killing intent, they would surely be dead. Without hesitation, he grabbed his junior siblings. The moment the binding force dissipated, they fled swiftly, streaking across the sky like a rainbow. Fearing the senior might change their mind, he used every ounce of strength to escape. After they left, the moss-covered cliff face crackled, large stones falling away to reveal a dark cave. A long-haired man emerged slowly, his hair reaching his waist. His face was fair, his eyes bright and piercing. As he emerged, all the prostrate beasts whimpered and trembled, their eyes pleading for mercy. The long-haired man appeared to be around 20 years old, his expression cold. He glanced indifferently at the beasts, then gazed silently toward the Yue Sect at Mount Heng Peak, lost in thought. This was Wang Lin. "After 4 years of seclusion, I've long since perfected key condensation, but reaching foundation building is incredibly difficult. I've tried countless times without success. C2, is your method truly guaranteed to achieve foundation building quickly?" Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he spoke to himself. "Indeed. Have you decided? Will you use my method?" C2 smiled smugly. "I've told you before, though foundation building is difficult, my method guarantees success." Wang Lin's eyes flashed coldly. "But with my current cultivation, I can't defeat a foundation building expert, let alone capture one alive." C2 laughed heartily. "Don't worry about that. I'm here for your foundation building success. I'll make one more effort. Just give me an opportunity, and I'll help you capture someone. Better to target someone who's just reached foundation building that way. I won't waste too much nascent solescence." Wang Lin pondered briefly, then sighed with a bitter smile. "C2, this vicious art of foundation stealing purely benefits oneself at others' expense. The victim will certainly die. Let's reconsider. How many times must I tell you? In the world of cultivation, the strong prey on the weak, harming others for one's benefit is natural law. With your attitude, how will you ever reach nascent soul? Humph, if you don't want to use my method, fine. If you can get premium wood attribute materials to upgrade the heaven-defying pearl, you could cultivate with wood spiritual energy enough for foundation building. Or if you had a nascent soul expert's help. Otherwise, forget about it," C2 said disapprovingly. Wang Lin fell silent for a moment before asking, "How do others typically achieve foundation building?" "Simple. Those insects usually have nascent soul experts who can use their cultivation to help disciples reach foundation building. If I still had my physical body, I could help you too. In our country, nascent soul status equals foundation building here. Though not extremely common, there are enough to help their respective sects' disciples complete the foundation building process." C2 snorted. Chapter 73, Tianshui City. Wang Lin took a deep breath. During these 4 years, he had reached the perfect stage of the 15th layer of key condensation by the 2nd year. The following 2 years were spent attempting to break through to foundation building, though without success. However, his body had gradually changed due to multiple attempts at foundation building. The previous disparity between his dream cultivation and physical state had diminished. Now he appeared to be at the 8th layer rather than the 3rd layer of key condensation. "Foundation building," Wang Lin murmured. His eyes flashed with determination as he patted his storage bag. producing an extraordinarily luxurious giant flying sword. The sword seemed to possess consciousness, circling Wang Lin once before stopping in front of him. Wang Lin stepped onto the flying sword, his figure transformed into a rainbow streak, soaring through the sky and vanishing instantly. The beast, prostrating on the ground, visibly relaxed, quickly dispersing in all directions, circumventing Mount Heng Peak. Wang Lin rode his sword against the fierce winds, flying at high speed. Mountains, forests, and villages beneath him appeared tiny, flashing past rapidly. His home village soon appeared in his sight. Wang Lin paused briefly to look, then swiftly passed by without looking back. Mount Heng Peak was located in the northernmost corner of Zhou country, a remote area primarily populated by villages. Wang Lin's destination was Tianshui City, the largest northern city in Zhou country, tens of thousands of miles away. Wang Lin had only heard about Tianshui City from his teacher. It was said to be immense, housing hundreds of thousands of Zhou country's troops. Since childhood, Wang Lin had yearned to visit, even dreaming about it, before entering the world of cultivation. Wang Lin's greatest ambition had been to excel in the county examinations, become a high official in the capital, and bring his parents to live with him. Wang Lin smiled as these old thoughts crossed his mind, maintaining his speed as he flew southwest. 10 days later, Wang Lin found himself confused, frowning as he stood on an official road. Si Tunan's mocking voice echoed in his ears. "I watched you fly for days, thinking you knew the way. Turns out you didn't." Wang Lin snorted softly. "If you hadn't made me turn left and right through every forest we passed, claiming to look for wood attribute plant, I would have found Yanshui City by now." Si Tunan laughed. "There are many forests along the way. Who knows? We might have found some wood attribute plants. I was only thinking of your benefit." Wang Lin was about to reply when he suddenly fell silent, gazing into the distance where a long line of horse-drawn carriages gradually appeared. Liu Sen was the chief escort of Tianshui City's VIW escort agency. Though not particularly imposing, his body radiated strength. His mountain-breaking palm technique was refined to perfection, making him one of the rare experts in Tianshui City. Even the agency's owner treated him with respect and rarely assigned him to escort missions. However, this time the cargo was extremely valuable and the distance particularly far, compelling the owner to request his services. Liu San was generous and enjoyed making friends among various circles. Most outlaws would give face to any cargo under his protection. Now sitting on horseback, he squinted with satisfaction. The valuable cargo was almost delivered, and though they'd encountered some foolish bandits along the way, nothing serious had occurred. The most critical moment was meeting friends from the Green Forest Alliance, who had set up an impressive formation but had to withdraw upon recognizing him. Much to his pride, he closed his eyes briefly, feeling somewhat relieved. They were approaching Tianshui City, and the owner's task was nearly complete. "Chief Escort, now that we've safely delivered the cargo, how much do you think the owner will give us?" asked a robust young man on horseback beside Liu San. Grinning, "Chief Escort, with cargo this valuable, we should get at least 10%, right?" A dark-faced man next to Yang Sen also chimed in with a smile. Liu San glared at them. "When has the owner ever shortchanged us? Why worry about this? Just wait and see." The young man showed no fear, patting his horse as he laughed. "All right. With Chief Escort's word, I, Yang Sen, can rest easy." The dark-faced man laughed heartily, about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. "Chief Escort, isn't that someone standing there?" Liu San peered ahead. Seeing a figure standing in the middle of the road, his expression darkened. "Yang Sen, don't ask what's happening. If they need travel money, give them some. Everyone faces difficulties while traveling." Yang Sen's lips curled as he responded, spurring his horse forward with a kick. As he approached the figure, instead of slowing down, he urged his horse to go even faster. Liu Sen frowned at this, thinking that while Yang Sen had many good qualities, His impulsiveness was a flaw trying to intimidate others without understanding the situation. The dark-faced man chuckled. This Yang Sen, not worried about frightening others. Still, the kid's horsemanship is truly excellent. The person standing on the road was the lost Wang Lin. He watched as a rider broke away from the caravan, approaching rapidly. Yang Sen could now see the other's face clearly. Looking closer, he found that though young, the man remained composed, showing no panic at his rapid approach. Impressed, he pulled his reins, causing his horse to neigh and leap sideways. Passing close by Wang Lin's side, after moving a few steps forward, Yang Sen cupped his fists and called out loudly, "I am Yang Sen from Shui City's VIWU escort agency. Friend, do you need any assistance?" Wang Lin glanced at him, smiling and returning the gesture. "I wish to inquire about the direction to Shui City. Please forgive any disturbance." Yang Sen paused, examining Wang Lin, particularly noting his hands and temples, then casually smiled. "No problem. Shui City isn't far. May I ask what brings brother there?" As Yang Sen looked Wang Lin over again, the caravan drew near. Liu Sen called out, "Yang Sen, what's the situation?" Yang Sen turned his horse around and shouted back, "Chief escort, it's a young man with no martial arts training asking for directions to Shui City." Liu Sen pulled his reins and approached quickly, his eyes flashing as he stared at Wang Lin. "Friend, may I know your full name?" Wang Lin cupped his fists and replied, "Escort chief, my humble name is Wang Lin. This is my first time leaving home, and I've lost my way to Shui City. I hope the chief can provide some guidance." Chapter 74, Omen of Bloodshed. Liu Sen examined Wang Lin carefully before suddenly asking, "You're a scholar headed for the examinations, aren't you?" Wang Lin maintained his composure and shook his head. "No, I haven't come for the examinations. I have some skills and hope to make a living in Shui City." Liu San's expression softened. His question had carried deeper meaning with the imperial examinations approaching. Scholars from surrounding villages often gathered in Shui City, typically carrying writing cases. Though this young man appeared untrained in martial arts, if he had claimed to be an examination candidate, that would have warranted closer attention. However, Liu San didn't dwell on it. What a coincidence! We're heading back to Shui City, since fate has brought us together. Friend, why don't you travel with us? Wang Lin bowed gratefully. "Many thanks, chief." The dark-faced man glanced at Wang Lin and asked with a smile, "Kid, can you ride?" Wang Lin smiled wryly and shook his head. Liu San pointed to the carriage behind him. "No need for thanks. Everyone faces difficulties while traveling. Young man, Hepburn, will reach Shui City in 4 days." Wang Lin bowed and climbed onto the carriage without hesitation. Looking back, he saw more than 10 similar carriages. His divine sense revealed they were all empty, so he paid them no mind and sat cross-legged. Yang Sen pulled his horse alongside and asked, "Friend, why are you traveling without luggage?" Wang Lin sighed and shook his head. "I encountered bandits." "It's a long story." Yang Sen paused, studying Wang Lin before consoling him. "At least you kept your life. These are troubled times." As they chatted, Wang Lin's expression suddenly changed. He looked toward a nearby forest, his divine sense detecting two hidden figures watching the caravan. Even after the caravan passed the forest without incident, Wang Lin remained thoughtful but said nothing. After a full day's journey, as the sun set and night fell, Liu Xin called out, "Boys, we'll enter Shui City's territory tomorrow. The owner will send people to meet us then. We won't find lodging tonight, so we'll rest here and set out early tomorrow. When we get back to Shui City, I'll treat you all to some fun at the Binrong house." The men laughed heartily as they removed the horse tackle, tethered the horses together, and arranged the carriages in a circle. They set up tents, with some sleeping, others building fires or drinking, creating a lively atmosphere. Several men took turns patrolling the area. As soon as Wang Lin descended from the carriage, Yang Sen pulled him to a nearby campfire. After a day's travel, Yang Sen had found Wang Lin agreeable company, often regaling him with tales of his escort adventures. Wang Lin listened with genuine interest, which only encouraged Yang Sen to tell more animated stories. Seeing the caravan stopping to rest, he quickly brought Wang Lin over. 3 people sat around the fire: Chief Escort Liu San, the dark-faced man, and a middle-aged scholar in blue robes. The scholar had a fair complexion, broad forehead, and bright eyes that revealed his wisdom. Seeing Wang Lin approach, Liu San smiled. "Sir, this is the young brother I mentioned, seeking his fortune in Tianshui City." Then to Wang Lin, "Young brother, this is Scholar Wang from our WIWU escort agency. You share the same surname, what a coincidence. Chat with him a while." Scholar Wang is highly learned and experienced. The middle-aged scholar smiled gently. "Old Liu, don't flatter me. My modest abilities aren't worth mentioning." Liu Sen rolled his eyes. "Nonsense. If your skills are modest, Scholar Wang, then I'm nothing at all. Young brother, Scholar Wang is like a living immortal. He knows astronomy, geography, and especially the art of face reading. He's extraordinary." Wang Lin studied the middle-aged scholar carefully, smiling as he bowed. "Sir, your broad forehead and wise eyes clearly mark you as a person of great intelligence. The ancients said one can know a person's character by observing their spirit. Truly, this saying is correct." The middle-aged scholar looked at Wang Lin with surprise and smiled. "Young brother is also versed in this art. I see you carry a scholar's air. But there's also a hidden dragon's potential. Your future holds limitless possibilities." Wang Lin smiled. "My village teacher studied face reading. After watching long enough, I picked up a few things." The middle-aged scholar laughed heartily. The dark-faced man suddenly spoke up. "Scholar Wang, read my fortune too. I'm not getting any younger. Do you see any romance in my future?" Liu Sen laughed and scolded. "How many times have you asked on this journey? Each reading drains Scholar Wang's energy. Give it a rest." The dark-faced man ignored Liu San, gazing hopefully at the scholar. After a brief contemplation, the middle-aged scholar nodded with a smile. "Very well, I'll read your fortune today. Yang Sen, haven't you also asked many times? I'll read for both of you." He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they flashed with a bright light. Wang Lin maintained his composure, but his heart stirred as his divine sense detected a strange spiritual energy gathering in the scholar's chest, flowing in an unusual pattern before concentrating in his eyes. The middle-aged scholar stared at the dark-faced man, muttering calculations while his right hand moved rapidly through divination gestures. After a while, his face flushed slightly, and he frowned. "Old CU5, dark clouds obscure your celestial palace, revealing an omen of bloodshed. A great trial approaches. If you survive it, romance will find you within 3 months." The dark-faced man started, then laughed. "A trial? No matter. In our line of work, we dance on knife edges. Blood omens are nothing unusual." The scholar turned his gaze to young Sen. After a long moment, his expression changed. "How strange, you also show an omen of bloodshed." He glanced at Liu San, his face dark. "This isn't right. My family's face-reading art has never failed. Ah, Liu, you too show signs of bloodshed." He stood up solemnly and carefully examined everyone around, his expression growing increasingly grave. "Oh, Liu, this looks bad. I see blood omens on everyone's face. This cannot be coincidence." Liu Sen's eyes narrowed as he looked around. "Sir, are you saying we'll all face a bloody trial soon?" The middle-aged scholar nodded, then turned his gaze to Wang Lin. Suddenly he froze, rubbed his eyes hard, and looked again intently. His face transformed dramatically, flushing red as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He pointed at Wang Lin in horror, crying out, "You!" Chapter 75. Meeting an Old Acquaintance. Liu An and the others were startled. They had never seen the middle-aged scholar display such an expression. Liu An's eyes flickered as he rubbed his palms together, subtly moving a few steps toward Wang Lin's position. Sir, what about the young brother? Is he also affected by our blood omen? Wang Lin remained composed, giving the scholar a calm glance without speaking. Si Tunan's unhurried voice echoed in his ears. This little one is interesting. His face-reading technique has some merit mysterious to ordinary folk, but to cultivators like us, it's rather amateur. I just transmitted some memories of my past killings to him. He couldn't handle it. The middle-aged scholar was already drenched in sweat. His gaze toward Wang Lin had lost its earlier casualness, now filled with deep reverence. Hearing Liu San's question, he quickly waved his hands. It has nothing to do with young brother. His future is beyond prediction. My face-reading skills are inadequate. Cannot see clearly. He bowed repeatedly, his face bitter. What he had just seen had thoroughly shocked him. It was like a realm of Osiris. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood, filled with supernatural beings flying through heavens and earth. Having learned his family's face-reading art since childhood, he knew immortals existed and that getting involved with such matters could be fatal. Liu San frowned, about to speak when suddenly a scream came from the distance. A large head traced an arc through the air, rolling to a stop by the campfire. Liu San's face changed dramatically as he recognized it as one of their patrol guards. He immediately jumped to his feet. Yang Sin grabbed the head, clenching his fists and shouting, "Jiao Yu, I swear I'll avenge you." All the escort agency guards drew their weapons, looking around with murderous intent. The dark-faced man stood beside Liu San, his eyes sharp as he shouted, "Which hero comes here showing such disrespect for the rules?" A sinister laugh echoed as dozens of black-clad figures emerged from the ground, brushing off dust while coldly eyeing the WIWU escort agency members. Mountain-breaking Palm Liu San, hand over the item and we'll leave immediately. Otherwise, no one here will survive, said an emaciated elder who slowly walked out from among the black-clad figures. Liu San's face darkened. I should have known it's you, Vulture Song Xing. The elder cackled sinister lie. Liu, let's be honest. Your WIWU escort agency is openly transporting red goods, but secretly carrying a 500-year-old ginseng. Hand it over and everyone stays safe. Don't endanger everyone here from your material possessions. Liu San frowned, looking at his companions while thinking, how does Vulture Song Xing know about the hidden ginseng? There must be a spy among us. At this thought, his gaze swept over to Wang Lin, and he smiled coldly. He signaled the dark-faced man while stepping forward, clenching his fist. Even if I had this supposed ginseng, Song Xing, your martial arts couldn't take it from me. The dark-faced man understood, quietly moving behind Wang Lin. Wang Lin's brows furrowed, but suddenly the middle-aged scholar stepped forward to block the dark-faced man, shouting, "What are you doing? This young brother is no spy." The dark-faced man was startled, about to speak. Just then, Vulture Song Xing laughed loudly. "Liu, I may not be able to defeat you, but today, our great Dang Nian will personally act. You're dead." He stepped back and called out loudly, "Welcome, great Dang Nian." He immediately prostrated himself, showing extreme reverence. All the black-clad figures around showed fanatical expressions, prostrating themselves and chanting together, "Welcome, great Dang Nian." A cold voice suddenly echoed from all directions, "Hand over the ginseng, or die." As the voice faded, a fireball the size of a fist suddenly appeared from the darkness, carrying intense heat. It instantly struck one of the escort guards, who didn't even have time to scream before being reduced to charred remains along with his weapon. In that instant, all the escort agency members froze. Some even dropped their weapons with a clank. Yan Sen's eyes showed terror as he exclaimed, What kind of hidden weapon is this?" Heat waves continued radiating from the pile of ashes, causing the surrounding guards to shiver and cringe from the scorching sensation. Liu San also showed shock, retreating several steps as he stared at the ashes, speechless for a long while. The dark-faced man's eyes revealed fear as he trembled. Immortal magic? As a child, he had once been tested by a cultivation sect but was rejected, later joining the martial world. The childhood memory left a deep impression, and seeing the fireball immediately triggered the connection. Song Shing looked triumphant as he shouted, "Correct! Our great Dang Nian is an immortal. Will you hand over the ginseng now?" All the escort agency members looked at Liu San with pleading eyes. They might have had the courage to fight mortals, but against an immortal, these men instantly lost their fighting spirit. Liu San's expression turned bitter. He was about to speak when suddenly 3 more fireballs appeared silently, hovering motionless in the air. Wang Lin's eyes flashed with interest. Judging by the fireball's power, the caster couldn't be above the 3rd layer of key condensation. He stroked his chin, his divine sense sweeping out and immediately detecting the caster in a large tree nearby. Oh? Wang Lin was surprised. The caster was around 28 or 29, at the peak of the 2nd layer of key condensation, seemingly ready to break through to the 3rd layer at any moment. The young man had a gloomy expression with several deep scars on his face, making him look rather fierce, but Wang Lin found him increasingly familiar. The middle-aged scholar sighed. "All Liu, hand it over. Even the owner won't blame us, they're immortals. How can we mortals resist?" Liu San hesitated before reluctantly taking out a palm-sized brocade box from his chest, carefully placing it on the ground. As soon as the box touched the ground, it suddenly floated up. Instead of going to the other party, it flew backward and was caught by Wang Lin.